and welcome to today's QuickBooks Enterprise webinar. My name is Alicia Delancey. I'm a partner here at Fourlane. I'm really excited to talk to y'all today about item categories, a new feature in QuickBooks Enterprise 2023. With me today, I have Catherine Butt. She is a senior consultant here at Fourlane and as an amazing designer and workflow builder within QuickBooks Enterprise and does a wonderful job. So today she's going to be walking us through item categories inside of QuickBooks and taking that deep dive. So Catherine, thanks for joining me today on our webinar.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to talk to everyone about Fourlane's 4 uniques and why we are different. What sets us apart from the rest of the world? So we not only work with QuickBooks, but NetSuite, Xero, Acumatica. We are value-added resellers. So VARs, if you've ever heard that word. Being able to make sure that our clients are in the right software and not just the only one that we sell. So it's really important to make sure that we're able to help clients whatever move that they need to make. We are here to support. We are also ERP consultants, maximizing QuickBooks to its full potential. If anyone's ever used those words that, QuickBooks is a mom and pop shop software, or I've outgrown QuickBooks. One of the things that we like to do is to be able to do like a file review for you, or maybe an extended process review, where we're able to identify and show you ways that your business can automate or work more efficiently within the system and really maximizing it to its full potential. Not only are we experts in accounting, but we're also experts within the software. So finding a consulting firm that is experts in both, it's kind of hard to find. Usually it's one or the other, but we are experts in both. And then our last unique is being strategic partner for change management. When you move softwares or you're wanting to improve workflows and things like that, change is bound to happen one way or another, right? And so we want to be here to support you, support your team, and allow for y'all to make your best decisions on what works for your company and your organization. So being that strategic partner is really important for us. All right, so getting into our topic today, item categories. So I wanted to start off with just kind of going over like, what are the pros of turning this feature on within QuickBooks Enterprise? Wanted to kind of do this first, talk high level, and then we're going to dive in. But our very first thing about turning this on, and I think is very valuable, the inventory evaluation summary report, it automatically totals by category. So currently without it, it totals by inventory part, and then it totals by assemblies. Well, there's no customization, there's no coding that has to happen. You turn that feature on, and now it's automatically structured like that for you. So not a lot of work and effort that has to happen, and it's nice to be able to see that in that total. The physical inventory worksheet is able to be filtered, and you can search by those categories. So it allows for some easier functionality and some workflows to be built so that you're using those categories to your benefit. The find and select on sales orders and purchase orders when you're searching for an item allows for quick access, drill down capabilities, something else that we're going to show you, but I think that's a huge positive there. It can also remove the need to use header and sub items within the item list. So it's not that it is going to be absolutely for sure removing it. Just depending on your business and kind of your requirements, this definitely can take that away. So it's definitely a positive. And then you have the ability to establish up to 4 levels of subcategories. So that it's not just a one level hierarchy. You have those drill down capabilities, which definitely in our presentation, you'll be able to see the benefit and how in depth that you can go there. So when we have pros, we usually have some cons, right? So we wanted to be upfront and make sure that everyone was aware of the cons that potentially could happen when we're turning on item categories. So the inventory stock status report, it does not total like the inventory evaluation summary does at the category level, but it does allow you to sort and filter on categories. So that is some positive there, but no totaling. The sales and purchasing reports, they do not have category functionality as of yet. So that's something that we want to show and share with you today. And then categories are not an available field on templates as of yet. So definitely something there as well. All right, so Catherine, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and switch it over to you so that we can go ahead and jump into QuickBooks and get started.
All right, so I'm really happy to be able to walk through this feature. As Alicia said, it is a new feature that was released in QuickBooks Enterprise 2023. And so if you are in an existing company file and maybe you just recently upgraded to 23, I think there's going to be a lot of valuable information here that you're going to be able to take and apply back to your company file. And for those of you who might be building a file from scratch, these are all things that you can consider when you're thinking about how you may want to utilize this feature and design out your item list. So the first thing that you would need to do is come to Edit Preferences and into the Items and Inventory section of the Preferences, and we're going to click over to the Company Preferences. Right down here at the bottom, this is how we turn on or enable that category for our item list. So it is optional, so this is something that if you don't see these fields and you're playing around in QuickBooks, go ahead and check this preference to activate the category field. Now, after that's turned on, the next thing I want to do is kind of show you what that does to your item list. So if we click on just any old part here, we're going to see in our inventory part item setup that we have this standard kind of items that fields that we would normally expect. We have the item name, manufacturer part number, the description, cost, all the accounts. But right up here at the top, underneath item name, we also have category, and that's our new field, and a pull down menu here. So all of the different kinds of items are going to have a category field, and that's going to include our service items, and you'll notice that this one says uncategorized because I haven't put my service items in categories yet. My inventory parts, as we just looked at, are going to have that category field, as are my inventory assemblies and my non-inventory parts, and even my other charges. So this really is a way to kind of think about the organization and structure of our item list a little bit differently. Now you'll notice as well on this item list that I also have what we would call our header and sub items. And we'll talk about pros and cons of using header and sub items in conjunction with categories as we kind of go through and look at some of the reports. So in this example, I have pool covers as a header, and then I've organized different types of pool covers underneath as sub items. Same thing here with pumps and screws. So we'll kind of take a look at how that works as we make our way through the item list. So now that we know all of the different kinds of items can be assigned categories, let's look to see how we do that. So if I navigate to my top menu of lists and then come over to manage category, I'm going to pull up a little bit of a dashboard here to help me get my categories either assigned or reassigned and add new categories. Okay. Now on the left-hand side bar here on this white side, I have a list of all of my categories. And to navigate through, I, for example, can click on any one of these, and I can see all of the parts that are associated with that category. So these are all of the items that I've designated as parts. And even in the upper right-hand corner, there's a count of how many parts those are. Same thing as I navigate through with pool covers and pumps and screws. And now I'm going to come to my uncategorized. So these are all the kinds of parts that haven't been categorized yet. So I'm going to come down to my Manage Categories button in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to click on that down arrow, and I'm going to add a new category. And for this one, I'm going to say chemicals, right? I can add a description here for the category, and I'm going to click OK. And now what I can do is I can come in and I can choose all of the different parts, inventory parts, that would fit into the category of chemicals. So I've selected all of these, and I'm going to come to this batch action button here, click on that little down arrow pull down, and say move to a different category. So what this is going to allow me to do is to move these 5 parts out of uncategorized and into that new category of chemicals. And I've successfully moved them. Awesome. So my uncategorized list just got a little bit shorter, and here I am up in chemicals, and I can see that all of these have been recategorized. So it can be a really easy process. If you're starting with an existing company file and you do want to move into using categories, we have this tool to be able to get those categories assigned. Unfortunately, the category is not available in the Add, Edit, Multiple just quite yet. So if you are looking at assigning existing items to categories, this would be the best way to do that rather than going one by one down your item list.
Yeah, we would never want anyone to have to do one by one. Manual is not anything fun. So using this dashboard is like absolutely the best.
Now, one other feature I want to point out here is that in QuickBooks, we can set up 4 levels deep of categories and subcategories. And this is really an area where you could be just a little bit creative about what you're using these categories for. So in this example, we have Joe, because Joe is in charge of these products that fall underneath his header. So Joe is in charge of tools, and then under tools, we have power tools. And then we can also have drills and impact drivers. So if I needed to add a whole bunch more under there, I definitely could, so that Joe knows exactly the categories that he's responsible for. That's a little bit of a way that I can kind of segregate out my duties. One last thing to kind of touch on is we can have at the bottom of this screen, I do have menus that I can use to navigate to different areas of QuickBooks that all utilize our items. Now, these are the same kinds of menus that you would expect, for example, if you're in the item list and you right-click, these are the same kind of menus. So underneath the item tab, we're going to be able to create new or get to our add, edit, multiple, or print the list. We have different kind of item-based activities that we could do right from here. So if you need to navigate to create an invoice or a purchase order, receive items, or do a build assembly or an adjustment, those are options that you have, as well as being able to come into the some reporting on price lists or your item list, as well as export your items to Excel. Now, those are the exact same kind of menus that you would get at the bottom of your item list. Those are the same things that populate down here.
And the goal, I think, right, with that is so that you're not having to move to different places within the system, right? And so you can kind of use that almost as if it's like your home base, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of the things that we want to really hone in on is what is great about these categories. So to me, one of the biggest things that we have now is the availability to look at our inventory valuation that is totaled and organized by our category. So you'll notice here in this gray bar at the top, I have chemicals, and then I have a total of chemicals. Now, these chemicals do not have any other organizational structure to them other than just that category. And it's the same thing with parts as well. There are no header or sub items here. It's just parts. So if you're ever wanting to ask the question of what is the value of this type of product that I have in my warehouse, this is a really cool way to be able to get quantity on hand and the asset value of those parts. So this is a really big win here with categories. Now, in places where we do have header and sub item organization, like for example, my pool covers and my pumps and my screws, I am adding in, right, that structure here. So you are seeing that information kind of replicated within the structure of the categories. But just to point out, right, one of the things that QuickBooks really loves for us to be is consistent. So down here at the bottom, these are my uncategorized parts. So it's kind of making you think, if I don't want anything to show up as uncategorized, I should probably come up with a way for all of my parts to be categorized in some way, right? Otherwise, we're going to end up with uncategorized at the bottom. Now, that doesn't mean they're not still calculating correctly. It just means it doesn't quite look as nice as it would if everything were in a category. So it's definitely something to think about when you're designing out that category list for all of your inventory parts and assemblies in particular. Now on this report, if you wanted to, you could also kind of reinforce those categories by adding that category field into your inventory valuation summary, just if you really want to reinforce, like, these are my parts and these are my chemicals. Some people have asked for that in the part as well. Now, the other report that I think is worth kind of diving into is the inventory stock status by item report. And this is my #1 favorite report in all of QuickBooks. And if you spend any time with me doing inventory design on a call, I will talk about this report till the cows come home. So one of the really great features that I'm happy to see is that we do get category on this report, on the inventory stock status by item report. Now, if you kind of compare and contrast this report to the inventory valuation report, you'll notice that this report is organized alphanumerically. So it's top down starting with the A's. This report does not organize and total by category, but it does list the categories here, and this is filterable. So I can filter by category. Therefore, if you do want to see the total number of any kind of part, for example, our pool covers and our pumps and our screws, you may still want to consider using those header and sub items within here. So that's just one of the things that you really have to consider, how you would want this report in particular to be viewed. Now, again, I can filter out by parts. And again, thinking outside of the box here, if you have different members of your team that are responsible for different kinds of products within your warehouse, this is a great opportunity to be able to kind of say, all right, these categories would go under this person's responsibility, and these categories might go under another person's responsibility, and kind of divide out those duties just a little bit.
And Catherine, a good example, and sometimes I think, it's like, how does this relate to me, right? And so one of the things here, as you're showing, some of my clients that are larger manufacturing clients, they've got multiple buyers within an organization. One of the solutions has been to be able to sort this, right, memorize this report for the individual buyers so that they're really only focusing on the data that they need to see. So it's a really positive addition and feature in order to kind of allow for those organizations with those certain needs to use this report, filter it, and then now we don't have to like go in and edit every time. Memorize, come in here and get all their work done really efficiently.
Absolutely. So another pain point we hear from clients, especially those like you mentioned with really large item lists and lots of products that they need to do, is that, doing their cycle counts or their periodic inventory counts are kind of painful. So I'm really happy to be able to say that in our physical inventory worksheet, we also have the category field available to us. And again, kind of thinking about how we would utilize this, this is a filterable option here so that I can come in and, for example, if I need to assign someone to count my pumps and my pool covers, I can select multiple categories here, click OK, and then filter this down. So that is one way that we could kind of facilitate maybe doing more frequent inventory spot checks by narrowing down by product category or product type.
If you've ever talked to either one of us, right, you know that we always recommend cycle counts, making sure that you're, not just counting your inventory one time a year. If you're not taking advantage of cycle counts, right, that feature within QuickBooks Enterprise, then using what you just showed us, that really gives us the ability to make sure that we're counting at least more than once a year, hopefully monthly, but true real-time inventory possibilities and quickly being able to narrow down what we're going to count based off of those categories. So it's really a positive thing.
Absolutely. And anything we can do to make this process a little bit easier is well
Yes.
worth it. So again, your opportunity here to think outside the box, right? Maybe category or product type isn't really how you want to utilize this, but maybe there's a different way that would work for your business, such as like area of the warehouse or like some other kind of northwest, east, south organization of how you think of things, right? There's lots of different ways that this field could be useful for you. So transitioning away from kind of our inventory reporting and into some different kinds of transactions, I want to show how the Find and Select works with categories as well. Now, anytime that you're filling out either a purchase order or a sales order form, you're going to have to kind of scroll through or type in the part numbers. That can be a little bit tedious. So whenever there's an opportunity to use my Find and Select items, I like to do that, right? I think it's a really great way to help us to populate. And sometimes you're on the phone with the client and they can't quite remember what the part is and they're trying to narrow it down. So in my Find and Select items, I can filter items by category. So for example, if I want to filter by the category of chemicals, that's going to narrow down those chemicals, and I can choose exactly the part that I need to put and then have that populate out my sales order. Now,
Yep.
this same feature would also be available here for my purchase orders as well. So that could be a really great time saver to, again, thinking if I have certain people who buy certain parts, they could filter to their names or filter to their product type to fill out those forms.
Yeah. And if your organization is one that has thousands and thousands of lists, like item list, right? This right here is just a great solution, like you're showing us, to be able to filter and narrow it down. Or think about if you're, a call center and you're taking an order from a customer, right? You don't want to be sitting there like having to scroll through thousands and thousands of items. You can click on that category, select it, and then go narrow it down and be able to search and find it really quickly. So lots of different solution. It's a solution for lots of different companies. So it's not just, positive for one industry. It's for so many.
Now, one thing I do want to point out, right, because I think, and especially when I work with clients, I like to point out all of the features, including the good, the bad, and the ugly. So one of the things that we just want to kind of talk about is that it is not possible yet, I will say, on a template to include the category on a form. So unfortunately, the categories like chemicals or parts or pumps cannot be added to a sales order template. So if you're thinking, wow, that would be really great for my warehouse to know what category of part, we don't have that feature just quite yet, right? So unfortunately, that's not something that we can add to a template just quite yet. And in the interest of full disclosure, I also just kind of want to say that on some of our open purchase order or open sales order reports, unfortunately, I do not have the ability to add in a category field or to filter by category on reports such as my open purchase order detail or my open sales order by item or by customer report. So unfortunately, those are not available within the system again quite yet. I hope they are soon. Just because if you're thinking about, wow, this is really the secret sauce that I've been missing, you just kind of want to know where it's available and where, you know, we might be hoping for an update soon to release some of these features. The other report that I think some of your minds would probably be coming to is the sales by item summary report. Now, again, this is a really big ask that I get from a lot of clients is like, I want to know, you know, how I'm doing, what my sales have been for these particular product types. Therefore, we don't get that kind of reporting on a sales by item summary that we could either add a category column, or unfortunately, we also cannot filter by category. So that kind of leads us back to how we would structure and organize our item list. So I would still recommend, if you want to see the sales by certain types of products, right, that you would still use that item and sub-item organization to be able to see, for example, the total of my pool cover sales. So if that's something that's important to you, we do still like to see that header and sub item so that we can get that kind of reporting for you. But I think this was a really great overview. Hopefully you're seeing some really great benefits to using these categories. I think it could be a really powerful field for us to be able to use.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I know we are like 3 minutes. Catherine, if you could just make me the presenter, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
But I know we are, 3 minutes in, or 3 minutes left. So I'm going to try to just make sure that I can cover what other topics that we are going to have coming up. So our future courses, inventory assemblies versus groups, file size, and why does that matter? So some of y'all may really be interested in that one. Construction industry, overs and unders, credit card management, prepayments on inventory, and customer deposits. So that's just a few topics that we've got coming up. If there's anything else that you would like to learn, please, provide that to us. Go to our Fourlane Facebook group. If you're not part of that, go ahead and join that. And then you can always find our recordings and webinars on our Fourlane YouTube channel as well. Greatly appreciate everyone joining us today, and we want to thank you so much and hope that you come back to visit us next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.